I'm sure you have noticed that there are a lot of older styles from the 70s and 80s that are resurfacing, making a comeback in interior design. Some good, some bad, and others, let's just say, should have been left back in time, never to be summoned again. I'd also like to thank Squarespace for sponsoring today's video. Today, we're gonna take a look at some of these design elements to see why they're making a comeback and if any of them have lasting power to actually remain timeless in your space, so you know if they're actually worth investing in or not. In my opinion, timeless qualities have the capability of working with every interior design style, which is something very few people speak about. So let's see if these measure up to have a range to work with most interior design styles. First on the list, which is a big one, is the reintroduction of chrome and high polished stainless steel, which was so hot in the 80s. Even moving into the 90s, it was still fairly popular. The last little while, I felt like everyone has been replacing these fixtures and design elements with matte black, and now we're going back to this. Honestly, I'm a little lost for it, but to each their own. But let's take a look if there's actually design elements of this that have lasting power. Stainless steel and chrome have probably been some of the most affordable finishes that you can get on any fixtures and finishes and your design elements. So it makes it more readily available and attainable for most people that are already making it popular by demand. Most people are drawn to this because this present kind of almost exudes a kind of resilience and modernity that can work with almost any interior design style. Stainless steel has a tendency to look a little bit more soft and actually have more of a feminine style to it. And most of the time, this pairs really well with most materials that have more masculine qualities. The downside to this is that chrome can also come off pretty cold, meaning what you're pairing with it actually has more of a cool undertone to match. This finish is also most commonly associated with the most builder grade new builds, as it's known to be more of the safest finish that you can possibly choose. Now, whether I agree with this choice is a different story, but we'll get into that in another video. Nostalgia is endlessly repacked in our economy, and it plays a key role in popular trends. The reflectivity of silver has a more understated finish than gold, and in most cases still gives a sense of attainable luxury. It's so interesting to see that lamps, vases, and even other decor pieces are being picked up and being super popular with the Gen Z and millennials. They are diving heavy into this metal aesthetic. I personally think that certain items with this finish have the capability of being timeless in our space, like many mid-century modern lights, but do not go overboard, people. This is where you don't need a full tablescape. It gives off a very cold and unwelcoming vibe. It tends to remind me of this mirrored furniture trend. Remember those matching bedroom sets that were all mirrored furniture pieces? You know exactly the ones I'm talking about, and I'm calling you out for having them because I know some of you still have it. It is time to move on. Much like any trend, I always say to embrace elements of it, but less is always more. And in this case, stainless steel and chrome, in my opinion, does have timeless qualities in some elements, but not all. I thought travertine was left in the 80s with shoulder pads and mullets, but those are even making a comeback. And no, I do not support this mullet trend. Never have, never will. Let's leave that to the Australians. Travertine, on the other hand, is a swing and a miss when it comes to some of the applications. Don't get me wrong, I think it's an incredibly beautiful natural stone. Its neutral colors and variation of it can work with so many interior design styles. The major issue is that, one, it is extremely porous, like even more than marble, which means it's susceptible to staining and etching from literally just looking at it. This can be protected, but the major issue with travertine itself is that this stone has natural crevices that actually trap dirt and grime in it, making it almost impossible to maintain. Now, before you come for me, yes, you can get natural travertine that is filled, so it's a flat surface, but what's the point? You're literally getting a stone and filling it with silica and other materials to try and match the color, and it just ends up looking like a child's arts and craft project. Honestly, I'm not convinced that travertine can stand the test of time. It may have old world charm and rustic appeal, but in this fast-paced world of innovation that we started to look at practicality over aesthetic, it feels like a more relic of the past than a timeless classic. Plus, the colors of travertine really mean that you have to stick with a very warm palette, which doesn't always work for every space. If you were to commit to using this, I would only ever recommend using it as wall applications. Surfaces and floors are a huge red flag. Do you know what also doesn't need to be stuck in the 80s? Your website. Wait, did we have websites in the 80s? I mean, luckily with Squarespace, your website can look just as modern as you are. In my last video speaking of Squarespace, I talked about how I use it to showcase my portfolio portfolio and design projects. But today I want to talk to you how you can use it to get new clients. If you've never used Squarespace, it is an all-in-one platform that makes it really easy to design and build your website from scratch. I designed my website very intentionally using their templates. I set it up so I can have different panels to make sure that it's super easy to navigate. One of the features that I included that I think would be super helpful in any business is your contact submission page. I set it up so if you're looking to renovate or even make quick cosmetic changes to your home, you can easily book a consultation with me. It sends it directly to my email and we can connect and discuss on the overall project. This is a great way to funnel potential clients. I also love their Fluid engine, so you can drag and drop any feature you want to your website. It makes the process of building a website super easy and honestly fun in my opinion. For me, this was the most daunting part about starting my business. As an example, you can choose a template you want and you can drag and drop and customize down every detail from the website itself. You can head over to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch your website, go to squarespace.com/DesignDaddy to save 10% off your purchase of a website or domain using code DesignDaddy. Now let's get back to the design elements that are making a comeback. Conversations are on the same topic, and much like you, the retro outfit you swore you'd never wear again is making a comeback. But hey, who doesn't love a blast from the past, right? The design of these pits were the absolute hype in the 70s. They were cool, they were groovy, and honestly, they were pretty iconic for the moment. But were they really timeless? And more importantly, are they practical? On the plus side, the design of these pits are the equivalent of a bear hug. I can only imagine the late night chats and the gossip that gets shared in these areas that brings everyone together. I think they're great, honestly. Modern design has tried to replicate the atmosphere of a conversation pit, but it really doesn't measure up into this sunken in area that feels super intimate. Much like all good things, they do come with a few cons to consider. Firstly, if you are hosting and you have one of these, I'm sure drinks are involved. And if you have a sunken in space like this with no designated railings, it means there are bound to be some accidents if you're not watching your step. You also cannot forget about the fact that these dropped in areas are really challenging to rearrange furniture within. The style of these remains to confine everything around the edges with dead space in the middle depending on how big it is, which can also be a very expensive commitment to have dedicated lower level furniture pieces that only fit in this area. This is literally the most permanent fixture you can have in your home, and if you do not have the space to commit to it, you are quite literally taking the plunge to add a design statement into your space. While this design is definitely not code in some areas of the world, I believe that conversation pits have the capability of being a timeless feature in your home, and especially if you are one of those people that love to host. The modernized conversation pits nowadays tend to be the kitchen, which is great to a certain point until everyone gets tired of standing. This dedicated space really creates an intimate area that really fosters meaningful connections, which can be a timeless quality. And if you really think about it, the sentiment of this style will continue to remain popular. And in my opinion, I would have one of these if I had the room. Another resurgence in interiors is the velvet textile and how popular it's starting to become. If we're being real though, velvet does have a sense of luxury, unlike most textiles, and it really adds that touch of retro glam that I can get behind. There is something undeniably luxurious about singing to a velvet sofa after a long day, and when I say I approve this textile for furniture application, it is for that only. I do not support the reintroduction of velvet tracksuits or any of that velour in my opinion. There is something so tacky about them, and if you have one of them, it's probably time to let it go, especially if it says juicy on the back. Yes, it was iconic for Lindsay Lohan and Paris Hilton.
That's hot.
But there are some things that are just left in the past, and this needs to be one of them. The fact that velvet was also used on walls is wild to me, but then again, they use shag carpet on the walls, which doesn't surprise me. I feel like they just knew that velvet looked expensive, so they're like, let's put it everywhere. There is something undeniably timeless about velvet though, in my opinion, like an aging rock star that honestly refuses to retire and they still steal the show. Madonna, I'm talking about you. The fact that you're 65 and still wear whatever you want and dancing like there's no tomorrow on tour is absolutely iconic. Even if your face is unrecognizable now, you're still a queen. The rich texture and opulent sheen of velvet honestly add drama in any space. And the greatest thing about it is that it is one of the most durable and high rub count materials, making it excellent for camouflaging any wine spill. You literally just dab it with a little water, buff it out until it's dry, and it will look like there's nothing there again. You can get stains off of it so easily. The major shift I've noticed in the elements is the vibrancy of colors that's being used. From those 70s, we used really rich and opulent tones. Now the modern take on it is using softer and muted ones, especially if you like that earthiness. It looks so good in any space. Last on the list has me honestly on the fence, but it's parquet flooring. When you think of parquet flooring, you probably instantly visualize this cheap little 4x4 square that you probably had in your first rental place that you ever lived in, and it was probably this honey orange color that didn't work with anything you owned. When you see it, you likely instantly hate it. I know I had it in the very first place I ever lived, and honestly, it still gives me nightmare flashbacks. On the other hand, this style was once known for its intricate geometric patterns that made you feel like you were walking through Versailles. But let's face it, these moments of glory are long gone when it's trickled down into being an affordable state for homes and it gets to the masses. It's just not the same. Much like everything else we've talked about, it's starting to make its comeback with a modern twist. You may have seen these interlocking floor systems that have been introduced lately that honestly give you a complete elevated look to parquet, in my opinion. Like, look at the intricacy of some of these styles. They really can create a wow factor that stands out in a really positive way. Keep in mind that this is a very busy flooring style and it is not going to work for every house and every household. Many of these styles really pigeonhole you into a very specific interior design style, so consider that before you commit to having any of these installed in your home. Sure, modern parquet floorings might have these moments of trendiness, but let's not confuse it with true timelessness. It's not like trying to pass off a TikTok dance craze as the next Macarena. Fun for now, but unlikely to stand the test of time. So while I can appreciate the effort, let's not kid ourselves into thinking that modern parquet flooring stands the same sway as the classic counterpart for mid-sized natural plank that looks good with literally everything. Regardless of trends, we always circle back every decade or so. It's literally us reinventing the wheel because we've always needed something new and flashy, and that, my friends, is consumerism in a nutshell. As always, thanks for watching, and be sure to like this video, and if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to my channel because Daddy said so. You can also follow me on Instagram and TikTok for all my daily design advice at Mr. Phoenix Gray. Oh, and there's photos of me if you care to see that. And just remember, if you're ever second guessing yourself, just ask, what would Design Daddy do? Ooh.